Good afternoon. My name is Kamil Romuald Kozłowski. I am a PMO at Plugin Foundation and co-founder of Airflo. And also, I will be moderating today's discussion. And today, we are going to talk about how businesses and organizations support Ukraine during the war. In this session, we'll discover how does the ecosystem look like before the war and how does the state change. Also, we'll hear what founders were forced to do in order for the businesses to survive. And we'll have a chance to find out what's next for startups and the ecosystem. As the ways in we, as Polish technological diaspora, can support it. This following session is our sign of support for our sister startup ecosystem in Ukraine. And I think this session is really special, as it is, of course, about technology. It is about building an organization, but most importantly, it is about people. It is about people who had to show enormous resilience and creativity during these difficult times. And this is the place and time when we can all learn from them. And now I would like our speakers to introduce themselves. Our first speaker is Evgeny Galkin. Evgeny, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Kamil. Hello, everyone. Great to be part of this amazing event. So I'm Evgeny Galkin. I'm a part of Google Ukraine. Last 12 years, I'm a part of this amazing team, and I was one of the first employees in the Kiev office of Google. I have an engineering background before joining Google, and now my position is called industry head. So basically what I do is I help our biggest partners, our biggest advertising clients to grow. And also I'm covering several other markets except Ukraine. So we work with Belarus, with Kazakhstan, and several others.
Okay, thank you, Evgeny. With us here is also Maria Smerechuk, connecting with us from Kiev.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Maria. I'm representing Mindly as co-founder and COO. Mindly is a mental health platform for therapy online, and I will tell more like how we made our wartime pivot, let's say, how we are changing mental health perspective in Ukraine. And our plans for the future.
And also Maciej Szczepaniak.
Hi everyone. My name is Maciej Szczepaniak. Very happy to be joining in today. I'm a co-founder of Ukrainian Tech Collective that helps Ukrainian developers who can't work as a result of the ongoing war by matching them with international developers who provide work cover for them so they can continue getting paid. I'm also a founding partner at Seed9, which is an angel investor syndicate focused on investing in early stage tech startups in emerging markets. And prior to becoming an investor last year, I spent 12 years at Google working in sales and product roles in Europe, Latin America, and the US. I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa, but I'm dialing in from Berlin, Germany today. Again, thank you so much for having me.
And our last speaker is Oleksandra Bernatska.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexi, or Ola in Polish. I'm a co-founder and chief product officer in Skyworker. We are building platform for tech recruitment. As for companies, it works like a lead generation platform, but for interested and relevant candidates to fill the company's current job openings. And for candidates, as they say, it's like a Tinder for tech jobs. So firstly, we build it for the Ukrainian market. We started with this. We are Ukrainians, the project delivered in Ukraine, but now we are focusing on the European market of candidates and European and the US market of tech companies. We'll describe you more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Finishing the introduction, I would like to start our discussion with an overview of Ukrainian startup ecosystem. I know, we all know now, Evgeny, that you are working within this ecosystem for about 12 years so far. Could you give us an overview of what were the dynamics of it just before the war?
Sure. So actually, before the war, especially if we're looking to the last year, it was very successful, both in terms of the number of deals and the value of deals, and also we saw very important industry changes, like regulational changes. So it was really successful. So just for you to give a quick understanding, we saw at least 45% increase in the value of deals. We also had a very significant amount for Ukraine. It's really significant. 28 exits, including some really noticeable ones, like for example, Deposit Photos was acquired. So industry was experiencing a really good time and a good progress in terms of the startup ecosystem, and even if we look in general into the IT as an industry, it became one of the most important segments of the economy, one of the biggest sources of foreign revenue for Ukraine. So last year was really good.
Yes. So if you could say, what's like the Ukrainian startup ecosystem, the biggest asset, like the superpower, the biggest advantage that is not necessarily present in other even bigger ecosystems?
Sure. I would say the biggest asset, the biggest advantage is coming from the biggest difficulty of that market. So we're not that spoiled with venture capital. We like our startups, our tech companies are used to work with very limited resources. We have some VCs there on the market, but unfortunately, we don't have such a diverse and significant ecosystem as in many other markets. So people here are used to work in a very scarce resources, and that leads to the fact that they are often building the digital products with bootstrapping in mind. So they just do stuff and they need to produce it very efficiently in a very cost efficient way. So I would say this is and actually this limitation of resources, it also ignites the creativity because you need to do a lot with some small budgets, with a small number of employees. So actually the good analogy is from our current situation. You may have heard from the news this stories about Ukrainian farmers capturing the tanks with their tractors, right? So this is the type of creativity when you're facing the very strong, very powerful opponent or competitor, and you need to be creative.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have a great example here because Maria is with us. She's a co-founder of Mindly, and maybe I don't know, you didn't install the tank or something, but from your perspective as a founder, what was the ecosystem like, and what changed after the outbreak of war?
Oh, to be honest, I almost don't remember because it has been 3 months. Yeah, since everything has changed dramatically, and it feels like it's more than a year now. Yeah, but what I really remember, and I can say that in terms of recruiting, and maybe Ola can confirm it later, then it was much more difficult to find and hire good candidates as the market was quite competitive. And now we see a trend that we have almost 1,500 candidates for 40 vacancies. So it's at the moment it becomes much easier to find like really good candidates as they start to write out themselves. Like before, I can't imagine that some senior front-end engineer would write me. And now they do it because they even huge companies, they like froze all of the projects and they just don't pay salary. That's what I can say. And in terms of the team, we also realized that we don't need such a huge team as we did before. And like the people who stayed with us, they like really share our values, and we can move together like much faster than we did before.
Yes. So this is how we entered the next topic of our discussion. Maria said to us, what was it like from her perspective? Oleksandra, what changed for your startup? How do you adapt to this situation, and how does it change your business plans?
Okay, well, to start with, before the war, we had a really strong position on the market. We were one of the fastest growing startup in Ukraine. We were about to raise the funding, the seed round. We had the highest activity of users on the markets, like thousands of interviews arranged in each month. And on the February 24th, we suddenly lost 67% of our clients, because the majority of companies frozen their hiring activities in Ukraine. We made a research among our users, companies, and candidates, and here are the outcomes. Firstly, most of the candidates, like tech talent, they were ready to work full-time. They moved to the safe places. Only 20% of them left the country, and 80% stayed in Ukraine. And almost, I guess, 69% were ready to consider some new opportunities. Correct, Maria? Both in active mode or in a passive mode. But the interesting moment, they were considering mostly the job offers from the foreign companies, like the remote offers, so that were like searching for more stability in work. And on contrary, Ukrainian tech companies were ready to hire engineers abroad from Poland, Czech Republic, Romania. So we figured out that we appeared in a situation that when the successful matches just did not happen anymore because users' behavior changed. That's why we changed our strategy. And firstly, we started to engage in candidates from the Eastern European and Central European markets. We started from Poland, then Czech Republic, Romania, and I think it's only the beginning of our scale into the new markets. And on the other side, we started to focus on attracting fast-growing tech companies from the US and from the Western and Central Europe on board. So it was like 3 months after we had this new strategy implemented. And now we, like the most of the companies that are now on board on Skyworker, they are from abroad, they're from Europe. Some of them are Polish companies or companies with offices here, or the US companies hiring remotely. And they are hiring both European engineers and Ukrainian engineers. This is a really interesting moment that we are now also working on, like convincing the companies, like why is it a good opportunity to hire Ukrainians now? Because like, first of all, as I said before, most of them moved to the western part of Ukraine, which is like more safe. Secondly, the whole financial system in Ukraine works properly, so there wouldn't be any issues with the payments. And thirdly, tech specialists are more likely not to be prescripted to the armed forces, as they are like staffed already by 70%. And there are lots of like volunteers that are just waiting for the weapon from Europe and the US to arrive in Ukraine. That's why tech specialists can continue working like full time. So the important thing that we had built this proof of concept. like we already have international tech companies on board, and we have the proof of concept of the candidates market of Polish engineers. Already 3,000 of Polish developers joined Skyworker. And it made us interesting again to the ventures, both the ones that we have been talking to before the war and even the new ones, because it's understandable. Then after the war began, Ukrainian market became one of the risks from the point of view of the ventures and from the angels investors. That's why you, like as a startup, you need to prove that you are able to repeat your success on the other market, to prove that you have a potential to become a global company. That is why we did it, I guess, quite successfully, because we're now like returning to the previous results of the users' activity, and also to the final stages of communication with the venture funds. And as far as I know, other Ukrainian startups that have the possibility to travel abroad, to find the ways to scale their products abroad, they try to do this. So probably you will see lots of Ukrainian entrepreneurs now everywhere in the world trying to find a new product market fit for their companies.
Thank you. And from your perspective, Evgeny, what changed in the ecosystem due to the war?
I would say it really depends on the situation. Like it depends on the type of the company that we're talking, or type of the startup that we're talking about. So, for example, I would say that the hardest hit was for companies that targeted local markets. So they were affected the most, and they suffer the most. Some of them lost, I would say, 95% of the revenue, and it is just impossible to continue operations in that situation. And most of them are now trying to survive and to find maybe some additional resources or try to enter to other markets. It is much better with export-oriented companies, tech companies, but still the situation is really tough even for them, because just imagine you wake up on the 24th of February and you need to think of how to relocate your people. We have some partners with I don't know, 800 or 1,500 people, employees, and you need to relocate people together with their families. Some of them can go through the border. Some of them have to leave because they're not allowed to leave a country because of the martial law. So the situation is really difficult. At the same time, for the exporters, they are more or less okay in terms of the revenue. So we see that these companies, especially the portfolio companies of the Ukrainian VCs, they are doing more or less okay.
Yes, unfortunately, this is war, right? And I know that due to the war and its consequences, many developers also are unable to work on their full-time jobs while they're simply protecting their country. And the Ukrainian Tech Collective helps resolve this problem, right? So, Maciej, could you tell us what is the history behind the Ukrainian Tech Collective?
So my experience with the conflict in Ukraine was very much secondhand, and this is how Ukraine Tech Collective came about. So, as an investor, I have one portfolio company that's based in South Africa that works with a team of 5 developers in Ukraine. They're based in different places in Ukraine, including Kiev and Lvov. And with the build up to February 24, we were already having a lot of board conversations with the founders of the company about the safety of the team in Ukraine, the impact that the looming war could have on their personal and professional lives, and what it meant for the business. So there's a lot of fear and anticipation, for the few months before the invasion started. But then when February 24th happened, the reality changed completely. So we went from a state of talking with the team on the ground to trying to plan how to help them get through this horrible situation. So the reports about the personal well-being of the people, in particular in Kiev, was more dramatic and difficult than the team that was in Lvov. And very quickly, the folks that were based in Kiev were being called in to become a part of the territorial defense. In the places that they lived in, they would be asked to participate in military trainings. And the folks that were based in the west of the country, they were also performing some civil duties that had to do with preparation for potential attacks in the west of the country. So the founders were very desperate. They wanted to support their team as best possible. So we're discussing help for their families. At the end, all of the families decided to stay in Ukraine. But half of the team basically wasn't able to work during the first month of the conflict, or they would, work evenings, weekends when they weren't performing duties as a part of the territorial defense. So we had a number of meetings with the founders of this startup, trying to come up with a plan. And as you can imagine, for small tech startups, not having access to half of their product team is a very big business crisis. We were getting reports of even big size companies that had their developer teams in Ukraine, letting some of the teams go, or asking people to take a sick leave if they were asked to join the military forces, losing their pay. And we wanted to do everything possible that would allow us to continue paying the team on the ground in Ukraine. But at the same time, we had to make sure that there was a business continuity. So again, the business would survive, the whole team could be supported. Same goes for clients. So while brainstorming with the founders, we came up with an idea of finding work cover for companies like this one, where internationally based developers would step in and provide cover for business critical software development work for developers in a similar situation, because we knew that this wasn't the only company that was going through it. As long as the company would continue to pay their developers. So around this idea, we built a platform that right now matches companies that have a team in Ukraine that for war-related reasons are unable to work. We asked them to provide basic description of the type of experience that they need for some of their employees or all of their team to be replaced. And then we match them with internationally based volunteers who have the right skill level, the right experience. And since we launched the initiative in early March, we've been overwhelmed with interest from all around the world. So we have developers from 5 or 6 continents, over 250 of them, offering their time, different capacities. Some people offering 4 hours a week, other people offered as much as 16 hours a week to help out their peers in Ukraine. And for folks in a difficult situation to continue to be paid in a time like this.
Yeah, wow. Thank you. Can you present us with an example of how does it work? Did you already manage to help someone?
Sure. Yeah.
So we had
we had an example of a UK company. They're a mobile app. One of their developers, similar to the scenario I was describing, has been called in and actually called in quite recently. So that's another important aspect of the work that we're doing that people will be impacted, people's jobs and lives will continue to be impacted for as long as this war carries on. So just the fact that there is an immediate threat right now around some of the cities in Ukraine does not mean that people are able to go back to work. So in this particular case, one of the developers been called in, and the company needed some business continuity around bug fixing, around customer specific implementations of their app, because this is a part of their business model. So we looked at the type of experience that they were looking for. They were looking for a developer with experience that was primarily around backend. We sent them 3 profiles. They picked one of the profiles that they felt matched best the experience of the developer on their team that wasn't able to work. And then we connected them. So typically what happens is that you have an introductory and an onboarding call between the company that requested help with the volunteer. They discuss the scope of work, and then the work begins. So in this particular case, the project took about 1 month, and there was about between 6 to 10 hours of work provided by the volunteer on a weekly basis during a month. This relationship stopped, but we know that then there's somebody else from that team being called in right now as well. So they already flagged to us that they will be requesting help from an additional volunteer to help them continue paying their entire team, including the folks that have been called in to join the military.
Mm-hmm. And how can people volunteer to join the Ukrainian Tech Collective Corps? How can companies that need help join this project?
Sure. So please go to our website, www.ukrainetechcollective.com. If you're a volunteer with, either junior or mid-level, senior level experience, just let us know what your experience is, what are your coding, what your coding expertise is, and we'll try to match you with the company in need. As I said earlier, we have a lot of volunteers. Lots of them speak Ukrainian as well, so that there's for most part members of the international Ukrainian diaspora that offer their help. We would love to reach more companies in Ukraine, so that's our big call to action today. If you know companies that are unable to work with members of their team or entire teams because of the ongoing situation, and it's not necessarily about people being a part of the territorial defense. It could be also about people's inability to work, because of electricity, internet, etc., being unstable, or people not being in a safe situation. Please reach out to us through our website, through our email that's on the website, and we will match you with volunteers that can provide your company with a temporary cover as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. And we have one question from the audience. How has the situation impacted the day-to-day teamwork and well-being of your employees? So maybe Alexandra or Maria, feel free to hop on the microphone. Maybe Alexandra then. Alexandra, can you hear us? Is everything okay?
Yeah. Well, I would say that the first week or two after the war began, it was a little bit like in a mist, because the only focus for the whole of our team was to care about ourselves and our families, to move them to the safer places. That is why, we freezed all our business activities for this period. The only thing that we have done is to put this banner with a Russian ship on our website. I guess all of the businesses did it for some period of time. And actually, after, I guess, 2 weeks, when we understood that the majority of our team is in relatively safe places, we started to make a team calls to think of what to do next. We had like our regular backlog. We had to finish some tasks, and still we had to deal with our company strategy. That is why we started to make this user research. And as early as the startups started to do this, the earlier they figure out where to move next. That is why our next decision was to relocate the core team to Warsaw, Poland. Luckily, like the most of our core team is female. That's why me, my co-founder, and our chief marketing officer moved to Warsaw. We rent one apartment, lived together for 2 months. It's like in a dormitory, whole days and night of working, brainstorming, mentoring sessions. And we had a really cool mentors here in Warsaw. Lots of support from our Polish friends and colleagues. That is why I guess it was that fast that we understood where to move next and what to do.
Thank you. I know that Mindly started during the war new initiative. With resources you already had, you decided to support Ukrainians. What was it about?
Well, yeah, of course, as a mental health app and platform, like we understood that like Ukrainians' emergency for therapy is huge. Like according to researchers in the moment, it's like more than 60% of Ukrainians are in need of mental health therapy. Yeah, so of course, as a Ukrainian-based startup, like we wanted to make our contribution into the future of the nation. Yeah, so we started to provide free mental health sessions to Ukrainians. So we decided that like mental health therapy accessible to all Ukrainians. Yeah, but the important note here is that all sessions, like, yeah, as I said, it's completely free of charge to Ukrainians, but at the same time, our partner therapists are getting paid in full for their services because they are also all from Ukraine and they have families to support. So it's just unfair to ask them to work for free. And personally, myself, I don't believe that you can get a proper mental health session from a volunteer therapist. Yes, so Mindly has committed to invest all the money we make as a business, and like as a marketplace, we keep 25% from each paid session. Yeah, and also all the donations we received towards paying our therapists for free sessions. And so far, after the start of the war, we have conducted more than 2,000 sessions for the past 2 months.
Wow. And what is next for Mindly?
Well, of course, to scale. And like as we are, like I didn't mention it probably before, but like we are an AI-based marketplace. So our like worldwide mission, global mission, is to make mental health accessible to all, to everyone. And at the moment, we see that it can be possible only like with AI. Like we don't want to replace therapists. We just want like AI features to be like additional tools to help, because it's like therapists, they're humans. It might not be enough therapists for everyone, and it's quite expensive. Not everyone can afford to pay at least like $50 for this session in a week. Yeah, so that's why we are moving in this way. By the end of the June, we probably will have the first AI feature on the platform, and of course we want to scale. And we will enter probably like the next stop will be a Polish market, as it's like it's very welcoming and supportive, and it's yeah, and to scale then further in Europe.
Thank you very much. So we now know what were the dynamics of the Ukrainian startup ecosystem and what changed during the war. We also learned the stories of startups against the war, and we discovered what's next for the ecosystem. And I think now it's time for the final question of today's session, that is, what Polish startup ecosystem can do to support Ukrainian ecosystem. Oleksandra, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess considering the situation of the Ukrainian startups and the thing that Evgeny mentioned before, like the biggest advantages of Ukrainians is their bootstrapping ability, their adaptivity and willingness to grow and to do this with their own power. I guess the biggest support would be with networking, or with the knowledge, with some experiences support, also maybe funding if there are some venture funds here. So like to be more specific, for example, for what do we need now? Yeah. First of all, as we are scaling to the European, the US markets of tech companies, we will be really glad to be introduced to any businesses that are hiring remotely or hiring in Poland, like can hire in Ukraine as well, so we can talk to them. Also, we are now hardly working on the closure of our seed round. That's why if there are some venture funds we haven't talked to before, please approach us. And certainly we need to scale our sales department to build it like from the head of sales to the sales manager. So if you are this person or know this person, please approach us as well.
Thank you. Evgeny?
First of all, I wanted to say that we're super grateful for you guys that you already doing a lot as a country and as on various levels, like for example the initiatives like the one that Maciej told us about. So actually what I think it would be super useful for Ukrainian startups is your perspective on entering Central European and Western European markets, because you are guys more integrated into European economy than we are, and the question of how to enter markets outside of Ukraine is like the most frequent question that is asked by Ukrainian startups now. Like I'm involved now in a Ukrainian support fund by Google for Startups, and each interview that we do, we hear this question a lot. Like, we want to enter Poland, or we want to enter Hungary, or we want to enter UK, and we don't know how to do that. Can you help us with that? So this kind of business development experience would really help Ukrainian startups. We know how to build, but we often lack the understanding of the sales and marketing, especially for foreign markets.
Thank you. And Maciej, what's your opinion on that? How can we support Ukrainian startup ecosystem?
I think Evgeny, Alexia already spoke to it extremely well. In my mind, the key thing is partnerships, right? So partnerships that can help with market access, as Evgeny was describing, with access to fundraising and investors, for example, that would be strategic partners in European expansion, in case some Ukrainian startups don't have previous network with West European VCs. This is a great example. And at an individual level, case by case, there are stories of people that have been impacted in different ways, whose work situation has changed. If you get contacted by people like that are seeking new work opportunities, just look into your network and see who you can connect them with. Every day we still see people who were in a very stable work situation in February, March. Their situation might be very different today, and they might be looking for help. I continue to be impressed by the quality of the tech talent in Ukraine, and they make for amazing employees and co-founders for global companies. So it's all about just matching them with companies and people that are looking to hire or looking for partners. So anything that we can do to help facilitate those connections would go a long way.
Maria?
Yeah, and like what I can add that like it's already, I would say from the perspective of Google, that like Google's Poland team have been extremely supportive and helpful, and we are getting like tremendous support from Google and Google office in Warsaw. And which I must say is like the main reasons we are targeting Poland as our first foreign market. And like, of course, we will need a huge media and PR support as well in the future.
Thank you. So if you want to hear more about the initiative about Google, stay on to the next session. That will be in 5 minutes. And thank you very much for this discussion, and also for your input and testimonies, right? So if you're listening to us now, please don't hesitate to reach out to our speakers after the panel to get engaged in their initiatives and startups. And with me, once again, Evgeny Galkin, Oleksandra Bernatska, Maria Smerechuk, and Maciej Szczepaniak. Thank you to my speakers once again. It was a great honor to speak about Ukrainian startup ecosystem today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.